third spot. It's Watson. 1, 2, 3. One-man band is it all of the way. There'll be skyrockets over red roofs tonight. One-man band won the Godolphin Mile, completely out of gas. Darkiv's thrown it away. Math Moon and Thunderstruck join him. Math Moon wins the Dubai Kahela Classic. Math Moon has beaten Thunderstruck, Photo third, the errant Darkiv or Handassa. Then
Well, we are back. We are back with another UAE Racing Podcast. Of course we are. We are Anoraks are us, I would say. And we got another star-studded lineup again, I'd say. Would you like to introduce yourself first, Callum?
Well, yeah, it's the same lineup as last week, really. My name is Callum Adele. I messed up this bit last week, but I'm going to make it more professional this time. My name is Callum Adele. I work for Timeform, a lot mainly on Dubai Racing in terms of previewing, reporting, which is kind of my forte for them. So I mainly do flat racing, but Dubai in particular. So
Lovely. I know, 2 stars I've got. So, Capers, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Gary Catewell, freelance broadcaster and commentator. Spent a little bit of time out in Dubai working for the racing channel out there. Obviously specialised in Arabian racing as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it, really. Hopefully we'll try to have a few more winners than we did last week anyway.
yeah,
That was a little bit dangerous, you two.
Which won't be hard.
I had 2 winners. I think that was it.
I think I've got 1.
But
I digress. Yes, the one winner I had was AF Math Moon. Now, I can tell you, he will 100% win the Dubai Kahela Classic. You heard it here first. So, shall we go on to the 2-year-old maiden first of all? First up, B Jersey, obviously highly rated by Doug Watson, came third on debut, behind Forey, who's actually in the race as it is for Mike de Kock. Capers, who do you like in this one?
Well, obviously we had a bit of a chat about this before we started recording, and I think I'd probably just favour the other de Kock runner, Mazid, who has finished 3rd and 2nd, respectively, in 2 runs so far out in the UAE. He was a long way clear of the 3rd on his most recent outing. He was beaten by a Godolphin horse, and that was over this trip. I think the step up in trip did suit him. Ultimately, he just wasn't good enough behind Somerset House. Obviously, respect B Jersey. I think the step up in trip will actually help him as well. He showed good early pace to lead from stall 9. Finished 3rd over 7 furlongs behind another Godolphin horse, Capizano, on his race course debut. I think the step up in trip will suit him. Obviously, the other de Kock runner finished in front of B Jersey on that occasion, and it should also be suited by the step up in trip. But the fact that Simeon decides to ride the other one, I think it's quite possibly, well, it's obviously a tip in itself. Of the others, the ex-Charles O'Brien runner, Cape of Eagles, is fairly interesting, but how he'll handle the surface is anybody's guess. He's trained by Fawzi Nas in Bahrain, runs in the Emirates Entertainment Racing Club colours as well, who of course had a winner with Mizbar last week as well. But Mocha Botti's horse is also interesting down at the bottom. Magical Forest, been 2nd on 4 of its 7 career starts to date, but again, it's interesting he's been brought over here to run on the dirt. Whether he'll handle it or not is another question, but just looking on the breeding, he should be okay on it, I thought. But ultimately, the tip will be the Kock runner at Mazid.
Wonderful. You like any in here, Callum, at all?
Again, I have to wait to see the prices if there's anything that stands out. I don't think it will be, because there's a fair bit of form to go on for a maiden, actually. I had slight preference for Mazid, but it was only slight over B Jersey. I thought Mazid just achieved a little bit more when he was 2nd last time to Somerset House. It was a decent enough time. Somerset House was too good for him on that occasion, but I think he's run to a level that's more than good enough to win this. I could easily see B Jersey progressing from that debut. He did have everything. He had a good run throughout. He led throughout, and was beaten by 2 better on the day, arguably. So he could easily progress and go on from that. So it wouldn't surprise me if he won, and Forey's well matched with him. I'll be surprised if one of those 3 don't win.
Wonderful. Yes. There's one Sheikh Hamdan runner in here, in Spoog, I think is how you say it. 5th on debut, 70 days ago. Visored and was in over 7 furlongs. The step up in trip here should help. Headgear is now off and tongue tie on for the first time. Mr. Crowley aboard, which is a plus. Mazid, interestingly enough, has a mark of 85. Didn't improve as expected, but as Gary said, Mr. Sumion is on board. The one for me I think I'm going to go with is B Jersey, 3rd on debut. Went off favourite that day. We'll enjoy the step up in trip and we'll beat 4E this time, I think. But for me, I'm going to go with B Jersey. Who are you going with, you two? You didn't actually say which selections.
B Mazid for me.
I'm going to go for different, and I'll go for B Jersey. There's very little between them. Don't want the jinx to happen from last week, so.
You're jinxing me now. Okay, wonderful. Let's move on swiftly to the Hamdan bin Mohammed Cruise Terminal Handicap. On the turf, I'm pretty sure. No, yes. We have
Be a long way on the dirt, that.
You think 14 furlongs? We have Carbon Dating, who won twice at Abu Dhabi before coming second 5 days ago, and now he's up £4. What do you think of his chances, Callum?
Yeah, pretty solid. I thought he ran a cracker last week, beaten very late on by the French horse Golden Wood. He's better than ever. He's also, I'd probably say, he's probably just about proven himself over this trip. Before he wasn't the same horse he is now when he ran over nearly 14 furlongs, and it was at Chester back in July. So, but it's not going to be a strongly run race either, and I think a turn of foot might just do them here potentially over this trip. And if he's in the same form as last week, then I can see him going quite close. It's going to be trappy. I'd expect it to be. I don't really see who's going to be leading. It's only 7 runners, so it could well be messy. The one that stood out for me on form was Curb Your Enthusiasm for David Simcock, who is a hold-up performer, but he relishes fast ground. He lost his way a bit in the summer, but has got back on track really well recently. He won at Chelmsford and then shaked well over 12 furlongs at Kempton. He'll appreciate the step back up to 14 furlongs. Arguably, he probably wants 2 miles. And he's just the sort I think David Simcock could do really well with out here. He's had a good past record with horses in Dubai, and he's just the sort that will really relish it out here. Bar that, I could see Red Galileo being popular. I'm not sure he's, stamina-wise, I'm not fully convinced he's going to get the trip for all. It won't be a really stiff test, but that was my slight concern. Rembrandt van Rijn, maybe he has stamina to prove, and he's a tricky horse, but he's got the ability to win. So it's, I think one of those 4 will win, and I think Curb Your Enthusiasm is the one I prefer out of the lot, but it could well be a pretty trappy race. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to play it at this stage.
Fair enough. I like it. There's 3 Europeans in here: Curb Your Enthusiasm, Blue Rambler, and Warrior of Light. Do you like any of them, Gary?
The top horse, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
This can't
as
go well.
Callum's pointed out. I mean, as Callum's pointed out, David Simcock just does so well with his horses out here. I mean, Sheikh Zayed Road perhaps being the most obvious sort of example, and he's kind of that sort of ilk. I think Curb Your Enthusiasm. He did rather lose his way a little bit last year, but crucially, he likes quick ground. Ultimately, this race might not play completely to his strengths because, as Callum said, there's no real obvious pace. And quite a lot of the long-distance turf races out here can be running a bit of a crawl. But maybe Red Galileo might actually lead. He has led in some of his races in the past, but I mean, he's been second on 21 of his 7 of his 21 starts. He's only won 1, so it kind of puts me off. Carbon Dating has got a career high mark almost to the file bead. Obviously, he comes into the race probably much in the form of his life. Rembrandt van Rijn was a very high purchase for this operation when he was bought out of David Lanigan's yard. He rattled up a bit of a sequence back in 2015, winning 4 times. He was 3rd in a Group 3 contest on his UAE debut. That was at Abu Dhabi on the turf, shaping as though he wanted further. It was over 11 furlongs, so going up into it will help. And he didn't probably handle the dirt in that listed race here just before Christmas, when I don't think he was given a particularly clever ride either anyway. So it'll all depend on the prices. He could be interesting depending on what sort of price he is. But from a selection point of view, again, I'll want to see the prices before I play anything. But Curb Your Enthusiasm would definitely have to be the selection.
It's wonderful, wonderful. I'm not sure I'll entirely like both of you going for the same one, but we never
Didn't
know.
work well last week, did it?
No. Shaking my head.
Yeah. As Gary pointed out, I think Red Galileo could possibly go forward here. He won from 21 with Ed Dunlop, some nice form. The booking of Christoph Simeon obviously is something to look out for, don't you think?
Do we know if he's had an issue? Because obviously he's been off for quite some time, hasn't he?
Who, Regello, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was bought for last year's carnival. So...
Ah, right, okay. I knew there was a stroke. I couldn't quite remember what it was.
I guess he has, but he was definitely bought, I think, by Anthony Stroud in October last year, which suggests that he was going to be a carnival.
Yeah.
Okay. I think my selection personally is going to be Rem van Rijn. I'm not even sure how you pronounce that. I'm awful with names. He was third in the Abu Dhabi Championship Group 3 behind Munassa and Kahusi, both of whom I rate quite highly for His Highness Sheikh Hamdan. And then he was 9th on his latest start 28 days ago. They've given him a little bit of a rest, and that they obviously getting some sort of promise from him at home, and getting 1.5 kilos from Curb Your Enthusiasm. I think he's possibly the one to pick with, considering on the UAE racing competition you can get first two. So for me, I'll happily take 3 points from him. Next race, we're going to go for the Jafarza handicap here. We see a handicap here over 10 furlongs. Who do you like, Gary?
Well, I had to check, and I've noticed Callum put something on Twitter about this earlier. I had to double check that this was a turf race, because all these horses are dirt specialists. Well, the vast majority of them are anyway. Most of their runs, the horses that we know about, they've ran out here quite a lot. I mean, Tried and True won here earlier on in the year. He got some fair form on the dirt, but how will he handle the grass? Likewise, Ostad and indeed Brabham, who won at Jebel Ali, of all places, earlier on in the season. Thought Etadam might be interesting going back onto the grass. All his dirt runs here, he's been well beat, but he's got to show a little bit more, really. So ultimately, I came down on the Sati Seymour trained runner. A little bit further down in the weights, Town's History, who's a little less exposed than one or two of these. Formerly trained by Godolphin. He won at Ripon back in July of this year, over 10 furlongs. So we know that he handles the turf. He's had 2 runs out in the UAE, one at Jebel Ali and one here as well. He was 4th on the dirt here last time out. But there could well be a bit more to come from him, particularly off his mark. So at least he's confirmed to actually like the turf. So it'll be Town's History for me, but again, I don't want to see prices, and it's not a race I particularly like.
Yeah, I can't warm to it myself either. Is there anyone you like here, Callum?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not afraid to admit that I got through about half of the preview of this race and then realised it actually was a turf race. Because you see horses like Brabham. Brabham's never even raced on turf in his life, and he's a 7-year-old. I was almost thinking that maybe some of the traders have made a mistake here, that thinking it was a dirt race, because I can't remember a local handicap at a carnival meeting that's been run on turf, and most of those local handicaps on dirt are run over this sort of distance as well. So it was slightly surprising going down the field. Anyway, there were 2 that took my eye. I thought Town's History had a potentially very good chance. I think he's been shaping quite well on the dirt. He shaped quite well at Meydan back in December, and then built on it with a good effort at Jebel Ali last time. He obviously won twice for Godolphin on the turf earlier in the year. So I liked him. I thought he was probably going to be near the head of the market. I also thought Ostad was interesting. Poor run last time, but he did lose his action when challenging. Before then, he won at Jebel Ali in January, and also made an encouraging return there in November. He's also a winner on turf on his only start at Meydan on the turf back in January 2015, off a mark of 84. So I think he's potentially capable of going quite well. Maybe a couple at bigger prices that caught my eye in some respects. Maybe Prince Sahale for Owen Sharpie, who seems best on turf at Abu Dhabi, and maybe the old boy Leali Alandalis, who hold-up performer, not getting any younger certainly, but ran pretty well in China in April and probably needed his return. So if they go a good gallop, I think he could maybe catch the places. But I'm really interested to see how this is going to be priced up as well. I think it could be a very interesting market. But at this stage, I thought Town's History and Ostad stood out.
I couldn't agree more. I think Ostad stands out like a sore thumb. He's quite versatile. He won a non-carnival event here off £9 lower 2 years ago. He's been doing well. Mr. Crowley aboard. The only thing that's putting me off is probably still 10. I'm not sure how easy it is going to be for him to get over. Whilst Etidam is only had 3 starts for the yard. They've all been on dirt, so I think the switch to turf is going to help him a lot more now. And Al Rased's obviously been improving this season and going up in the weights ever so slightly. Yeah, it's quite a tough one for me. I haven't actually got a pick sorted out for this. But I'll probably more than likely inclined to go with Ostad throughout. See how Brabham does. But for me, there's not an actual pick in this one. And we'll go to the Mina Hamria handicap. I assume that's correct. The halfway stage of the card. A good handicap, a really good handicap, I thought. We have North America, who's bolted up in his last 2 starts. Do you think he'll be able to do the same, Callum?
It's going to be tougher. I've been impressed with him. I mean, he's won by 8 lengths, 8 3/4 lengths, so it's not, it's pretty easy to say you've been impressed with him, but he does look a dirt natural. He's very much bred for it. I don't really know why Godolphin sold him, but by the looks of him, because he is a horse that would have handled the dirt for them, or you'd think it would handle dirt well. He's gone up £14, which is quite handy, really. It means he gets into a carnival race, although he would have comfortably got into a carnival race off 95 in this. The bottom rate is 95, so yeah, I think he's got obvious claims, really. I thought it was a good performance last time. He's got to step up, but it's probably not the strongest of races. Wildcat Red, I think it has to be worth a mention on day for Doug Watson. Would pick these up on and smash them pretty much on his best form in America, where he's a multiple graded winner. Lost his way a little bit since, but for Doug Watson, a front runner round here, it's going to take him a long way potentially if he's back to his best. So I could expect him to be popular. Elsewhere, I thought First Selection was really interesting, actually, for Simon Crisford, who he's off top weight, but on the pick of his form, he could be particularly thrown in. I mean, he's a Group 3 winner as a 2-year-old, and he was also second to the Gurkha in the French 2000 Guineas back in May, which really wasn't that long ago, when you really think about it. And lost his way since, but he's also a 5-star winner on his debut, and I think he's got that sort of running style that would be suited by dirt. So I'd be interested in him. And I think another horse that would be popular is probably Bluff, who won quite nicely at Jebel Ali last time over, I think, 9 furlongs, or maybe 10 actually. So the drop-in trip's maybe not ideal, but I think a visor could really freshen him up, actually. I think he wore blinkers when he was in America, and he's a very lazy horse, so I could see him travelling a lot better than usual and getting over the trip potentially. So I thought he was interesting. Heavy Metal, I think, will be thereabouts as well, and didn't really fancy much of the others, but if you had to pin me down to a selection, I'm not really sure at the moment. I think North America's probably the one to beat, but I'd be interested in First Selection and Bluff.
Concise, I like it. Yes, I do like what you said about Wildcat Red. It's got me looking at him a little bit more. Any particular fancies in here, Gary?
I thought this was quite a tough race to work out, really. Like Callum, been very impressed with North America on his last 2 outings. He's drawn in stall 11, but he's won from a wide stall. I mean, he was drawn quite wide when he won here on his most recent outing, so that wouldn't really put me off. He just shows such good early pace that he'll be able to get across anyway. Wildcat Red is out wide of him in 14, which might be a bit of a concern, but ultimately he could be very well handicapped. I think First Selection is definitely very well handicapped, and we know that obviously he's won around Southall, but whether he'll handle the dirt here is maybe a little bit different, and that was a smallish field as well, wasn't it? So whether it depends on how he breaks, but he could potentially be very well handicapped. You can see the arguments with Bluff and Heavy Metal as well. Don't really fancy anything down towards the bottom. There are a few interesting Korean runners. Again, trying to work out where their handicap marks have come from is a bit of a nightmare. But I thought the most interesting of those was probably going to be Powerblade, who's got a decent strike rate as well, 8 from 13. He's been running in group races over there as well. I finished third in a Group 1 contest there when last seen. It was worth £220,000 to the winner, so it was obviously quite a decent contest. Again, the context of the form is very difficult to try and get a proper gauge on, but he makes his handicap debut, and again, his mark could be interesting too. It's a race where I probably don't really have a selection. I just want to see what prices some of them are, but if I was to maybe think of one that might be overpriced, I thought it might be Powerblade. I might take a chance on, but it's probably a watching race for me.
Sweet. Personally, I'm inclined to look at First Selection straight away because of obviously Jim Crowley. He won on First Selection in a nursery when he was a 2-year-old, but then he was second at Deauville to the Gurkha on First Selection. So they obviously got something going on there. They know he knows the horse well. Obviously, North America has been impressive, and then Bluff beat Insani, who I think the world of. So obviously, it's a really tough handicap. A cracking handicap, probably one of the best on the card, I'd say. And personally, I think I'm going to go with First Selection in this race myself. But you never know; it might change. Shall we swiftly move on to the 5th, the Mina Rashid handicap, a mile handicap, and I like Prince of All in this one. He won a listed race in Ireland and then was bought by Sheikh Hamdan. Hadn't been seen for a while until 26 days ago, and going down very badly to Stormbelt on the dirt. But I think I like him a bit more on the turf now. You got any thoughts on this one at all, Gary?
Yeah, he'll definitely be happier back on the turf, won't he? But he stuck out in the car park in 16, which would be a bit of a concern. Yeah. I thought the Godolphin horse Secret Breath was interesting as well on his first run for a while. But again, he's stuck on the outside as well, which would be a bit of a concern with him. The Cock Runner, I actually commentated on when he won one of those races at San Isidro back in. I think it was the one in June. The name sounded familiar to me when I came across. I thought, recognise the name of that horse for some reason. Yeah, I think I called him when he won that Grade 3 in San Isidro back in the summer. But again, I mean, those turf races out there probably aren't that strong, I think it's fair to say. The top weight, Lemario has his first run for a while. I mean, he's slipping, his rating slipping down, and as a consequence, because he's been running in Group 1s and Group 2s and Group 3s, albeit he was last seen well beaten in a handicap here, but he'd had plenty of runs before that. So, but I was actually going to go for the Marco Botti runner, Fanciful Angel, who won here first time up last year, off a £3 higher mark than this. Subsequently finished 7th behind Safety Check in a Group 2 here. But as I say, he won here over. He can be slowly away, which would be a bit of a concern. But from stall 13, he'd probably have to be dropped in anyway, I would imagine. Had a bit of a run at Chelmsford to blow away the cobwebs. He wasn't beaten far on that occasion either, ever 7 furlongs just before Christmas. So yeah, he'd be the one for me. Again, I thought it was quite tricky though. As you saw last week, I mean, William Buick gave Flashfire a perfect ride to win from a wide-ish stall. Break okay, just settle in behind, and don't try and make too much ground around the bend. Just get your position, switch out wide, and boot him down the centre of the track. Hopefully, Fanciful Angel can do the same.
I see. Yeah, Mr. Muscat on board, which I like to see. I think you like him as a rider, don't you, Callum?
Yeah, big fan of Danny Muscat. I think he's really underrated, and it's good to see him get a couple of opportunities out in Maidan.
Indeed. You like anyone here? Anyone you think is going to go forward and potentially make all? Or?
Yeah, the draws made it a bit tough, to be honest. When I first looked at the race, I thought it was potentially between Secret Brief and Fanciful Angel, and both of them have not got very good draws. Secret Brief did actually have a poor draw here when he was third in a really good made unhandicapped last year, I think back in February over course and distance, one that worked out really well. Godolphin had the first 4 home, and the form's stacked up really nicely since. He's obviously went on to win the Lincoln back in April, and I think after that maybe just found it, maybe just lost his way a little bit. I wouldn't be anyway concerned about him fresh first time up. I think it might even be a positive. Likewise, Fanciful Angel, who, like Cape has said, won last year off £3 higher, I think it was.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think he's got very obvious claims. I thought it was a really nice run the other day at Chelmsford. Interesting headgear as well. I think it's a horse that can be quite free going. So, I don't know, what's the headgear combination on it? It's a different one. Is it eye cover and cheek pieces, or eye shield? I don't know. Anyways, it did catch my eye a little bit, but both of them are hold-up performers, so hopefully the draw's not an issue. But I am a little bit concerned at backing horses from a wide draw over the mile. Certainly, I'd be a positive over 7 furlongs, but over a mile, it can be a bit of a concern. I know you're going to give a good mention to Silent Attack, Alex, so I'll leave that to you. I think he's got a bigger effort in him, potentially a bit too keen last week over 9 furlongs in what was a really slowly run listed race, but he's got the potential for more if he builds on that. And bar that, there's quite a lot with a bit to prove, really, that didn't really catch my eye. So on form, I'd say Secret Brief and Fanciful Angel, if both had better draws, then I'd be pretty confident. Otherwise, they're just tentative at this stage.
Yeah, I might have told you about Silent Attack. I can't remember. That's why I'm a bit frazzled. I do like Silent Attack a lot here. I think it's something to note considering he's backed up so quickly that I'm not really sure I've seen that much with Godolphin runners. Maybe they do it in the Carnival and I haven't noticed before, but I think that's notable. And of course, Pat Gosgrave with Saeed bin Saror, they have an outstanding partnership. I think I can't even remember now, there's something like 5 and 9 or something ridiculous like that. So they're obviously working well together. He was 4th behind Sovereign Debt, who obviously has classy form behind himself. He's a listed winner after winning conditions event with against Silent Attack. The one I looked at here, I don't know why I was drawn to this one, but Artwave down at the bottom. He's from stall 9. He's obviously a Jebel Ali stalwart, and he didn't really handle the turf last time, I don't think. And it's interesting they're trying it again now. So I think that's possibly one to look at. But I think I'm potentially going to go with Silent Attack in this one myself. I can't see anything coming anywhere near him. Because I just find it so odd they're bringing him out so quickly. And of course you got Prince of All, who will enjoy the return to turf. Right, we got I'd say it's probably the flagship of the day. We got Muarab in the Dubawi Stakes. Do you think he'll go from the front, or do you think he'll just tuck in again, Gary?
Well, I should imagine he'll probably lead. He proved when he won the race there on World Cup night that he doesn't have to lead, but I mean, he did disappoint in this race last year, but I just think I'm not sure this is the same quality sort of renewal. Obviously, Reynaldo the Wizard won the race last year, and he obviously goes well fresh. Reynaldo, he's a former Golden Shaheen winner himself, of course, but he's 11 now, so it's asking a lot, I think, for him to be winning first up, and he's probably not quite as quick as he used to be. I mean, Movie Star can show speed, but again, he's sometimes often a hold-up performer. The Happy Prince, how will he handle the dirt? Obviously, he was beaten by Ertijal last week, so he gets on in the dirt. And Wild Dude, well, I mean, he was down the field in Korea, I think it was, when he was last seen, but he had some decent form in the States. He's potentially interesting because he could lead, obviously. He's a multiple Grade 1 winner, of course, in his time, but I just think Muarab's Desert Force, you have to mention as well, he's won his last 2 quite impressively, over slightly further than this, but this is a lot tougher. So I just thought Muarab would be pretty tough to beat, to be perfectly honest, and would have to be the selection, particularly because he's not having to give any penalties away for any of those successes last year.
Yeah, I find that odd. Why is that?
Well, it'll just be in the conditions how they're written.
Oh,
I've no idea 100% why, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you concur with that, Callum?
Yeah, is it the change of year or something like that? I don't know. Might be.
Oh.
Could well be. Yeah, could well be.
I haven't gone down to what exactly I'm going to select. I think Muarab, who has disappointed. Well, this definitely disappointed in this last year. He was also beaten in the year before, I think, by Reynaldo the Wizard. So maybe he's obviously going to have later targets. The Golden Shaheen obviously is going to be the ultimate target. Whereas you've got a horse in Desert Force who's looked an absolute superstar on his last 2 starts over 7 furlongs. Certainly, he put up a huge figure last time. I think we had him rated 121 for his win last time in a handicap. And considering, I think Muarab ran to 124. We haven't run to 124 when winning the Golden Shaheen. Shows that there's probably not much between them. I'd expect Muarab to be favourite, so maybe I'll probably go for Desert Force slightly at the prices. But I think it's a really interesting race. It's probably between the two as well. Wild Dude, I can't really measure up. You've got that form in. He's a good horse in America, but he disappointed on his debut for this yard in South Korea. I think he went off Neven's favourite and was disappointing. He's also a horse that is a hold-up performer who probably won't be ideally suited by this track. He does need the leaders to go off too quick for him to be seen to best effect. So I'd be happy to take him on. Likewise, Reynaldo as an 11-year-old coming back first time up, unless they try and get him fit and ready, knowing that they're not going to have many more days with him as an 11-year-old. And the rest, maybe Movistar is actually bred for dirt, so I'd be interested to see how he gets on. Happy Prince, I thought shaped really well the other day behind Ertagel, but he's not really a dirt horse at all for me. I'll probably just go for Desert Force and hope that he is as good as he looks. It's obviously the real litmus test for him on Thursday, stepping back to 6 furlongs against proven Group 1 performers, certainly when you consider Muarab. So I'll just edge for Desert Force, but it'll take a high-class performance probably to beat Muarab.
Yes, I think so. Desert Force beat Bannock and Heavy Metal, and I wouldn't say they're anywhere near as Muarab, but you never know, really. Anything can improve. I think the most interesting one here is Reynaldo the Wizard, because as Gary said, he won this last season, beating Muarab by about 3 3/4, I think it was. So he's definitely the biggest danger, but I think Muarab, he was in a wide draw last time, he's fit now. And, of course, he doesn't have any sort of penalty to go on. So I think, for me, Muarab would be my pick in the Dubawi Stakes. And we're going to go on to the Jebel Ali Port Handicap. Another sprinting handicap here. Well, the first sprinting handicap. But there is one Sheikh Hamdan runner in Fit Yarn, a Group 3 winner last season. He was 4th behind Ertagel by about 2.5 this season. Obviously thriving at the moment. What do you think of his chances, Callum?
Christ, this is tough. I think Fit Yarn has probably got a favourite's chance, really. I'd expect him to be there or thereabouts in the market. He looks better than ever as a 9-year-old, really. Certainly last year he was better than ever when running a cracker, winning the Group 3 and then running a cracker, went 6th in the Alquois. He's just as effective over 6 furlongs, and I thought he shaped quite encouragingly last week over 5 furlongs. And so step back up to 6 won't concern him whatsoever. There's a few that interest me without being able to pinpoint one in particular. A couple of British runners in particular. I thought Watchable's on a really good mark now. He's pretty reliable, but he hasn't won since, I think, 2014. But he starts the year on a really good mark of 103. He's run big races in higher-end handicaps off higher marks than that in Britain, and he's a horse that can do well out here potentially. And if there's one that could progress or be better than his mark, I think Final Venture, who did really well for Alan Swingbank last year, progressed considerably in handicaps and then took the step up to listed grade in his stride. I think he was just touched off at Beverley. He's bought by Current Connections for 260,000 guineas, and he's joined a yard that do particularly well with sprinters in the Paul Midgley yard. So he won't be out here for fun, really. He's also had a recent run on the all-weather, which will put him spot on for this. So Final Venture and Watchable did catch my eye. Quick mention for Nadir. I think good luck to Josh Pearson, who's gone out there with Nadir. I hope he can run well for him. He's certainly capable of running well for him. I think he was beaten off a higher mark, I think £2 higher last year by Baccarat in February over course and distance. So he's certainly got the ability to go well. So yeah, the two for me that I'm concentrating on, probably Final Venture and Watchable, but I think Fit Yarn has probably got as good a chance as any.
Wonderful. I quite like Hawkesbury here. Was formerly with Godolphin, hasn't been seen since December of 2015, which is an awfully long time. But now with Seymour, who does quite well with these, I'd like to see how he does and how he progresses before actually going in on him. So we'll see how he does. Steady Pace getting 4 kilos from Fit Yarn, and last seen when third of 3 in a conditions event. Not overly interesting me there, but just purely because a Godolphin horse is down at the weight, so I had a look at him. I'd say Gordon Lord Byron. Obviously, he had a problem last week and always one to watch. Mr. O'Shea is a genius. But, Gary, do you like anyone in here, or is it too hard for anyone to pick out a winner?
Nasty race. Oh, dear. We'll start with Fit Yarn. Obviously, he's up for career high mark now, which I find a little bit odd, but obviously he seems to like, but again, as I said last week, he'll always run his race, but he's not the horse that I want. Not a horse that I want to back at a short price, because his wins are rather infrequent, and they're usually at big prices. So I'm happy to let him win whatever price he is. Be interested to see how Gordon Lord Byron gets on. Likewise, we've not mentioned Soul Power either. Whether he quite sees out the last part of the trip here of a 6, I'm not completely convinced. Nadia's got the ability, but sometimes for me just chucks it in. Don't like him at all. The one that I think is probably most solid to maybe hit the frame, he did so, I think, on all 3 of his starts out at the Carnival. Last year, he's a 9-year-old, so he's not getting any younger, but Jamesy, who was third 3 times here last year, 2 of them over this course and distance, off marks similar to this, so we know that we know that he's capable. He can go well fresh as well. He doesn't win very often. He hasn't won for quite some time, to be perfectly honest. But he might be a fairish price. And as I say, he hit the frame on all 3 of his starts at the Carnival last year. So it'll be interesting to see if he could get into the frame again with 4 places to aim at as well. I'd maybe go for him each way. And I was interested as well in Potty Bias on his debut for the Simcock Yard. Used to with David Lanigan, was 9th in the listed race at Ascot over 5 furlongs when last seen, but I thought back up to 6 furlongs would be interesting for him. It'd be interesting to see where the stalls are as well. I still maintain I'd prefer to have a sort of high-ish draw, so but it'll be interesting to see if the stalls are stand side for the 6 furlongs or far side. I think usually they might be stand side for 6 furlongs, so that might well bring those more towards the near side slightly, give them a bit of an edge. But from a selection point of view, I'd probably take the coward's way out and put Jamesy up each way.
Definitely not a coward's way out. I'll probably head with Final Venture myself as an each way poke. And that was the penultimate race, of course. We move on to the last, the 8th race, the Mina Rashid Marina Handicap over 10 furlongs. Interesting to see Bassettine back, of course. You liked him, didn't you, Callum?
Yeah, I think this is quite a competitive race. There was a few that I could consider, but Bassettine stood out potentially as a horse that could easily be a group performer. I think he's got a few minds of his own about the game. I think there's any doubt, but he was really impressive here. A cut above his opposition when winning back in February over course and distance. That race did arguably fall apart around him, but he was just simply too good for them. And I didn't think he disgraced entirely when running in the Dubai Turf on his last start back in March. And I think he's got the potential to move on again this year with a year on his back in Dubai. He's only 5, and he's always been a horse that's had a considerable amount of ability. I think as a 2-year-old, he was placed in the Acom in a race that worked out really well. I think Dutch Connection won that race in the end. So that's pretty strong form even as a juvenile, and I think he can fulfil his promise now as a 5-year-old in Meydan for a top trainer. Looking elsewhere, well, Elham, interesting. Hasn't been seen since catching the eye back in January behind Sanchorez, but he's a horse that could have more to offer again this season, even though he's a 7-year-old. And there was a fair few that I could really give a chance to. Kerosene and another Sidebinster runners interesting. Both of Mike de Kock's runners can be given some sort of chance back up in trip, or whistle stops back up in trips. And Shawez ran okay last week. And Torchlighter's another one. Elaval's on a good mark. Majid I could see going well, so there was a lot to consider. So I'm just going to cut it short and say Bassettine wins.
I like it. I'm not sure about Mike de Kock when he brings out his horses so quickly after the first race. Obviously, this is all week after, but yeah, I'm not sure about Sanchorez and Whistle Stop, but I do prefer Sanchorez out of the two. Good trip for me, stayed on nicely when 5th last week, so obviously it's potentially another one to follow there. Any particular ones you like in this one, Gary, at all?
Bassettine, nap of the card for me.
Oh, no.
Oh, God.
Unfortunately, yeah, I think Callum summed it up quite nicely. He won very, very well here over this course and distance on his first run out here. That was his first run for quite some time as well. 10th in the Debater. Wasn't beaten far. I know he was 10th, but he wasn't actually beaten that far either, doing all his best work in the closing stage. That's over, obviously, 9 furlongs. I saw an interview with Doug Watson talk quite kindly about this horse as well. So potentially off a mark of 107, I think he's very, very well treated. The interesting one against him potentially could be Kerosene, who's not been seen for a while, but again could be well handicapped on bits and pieces of that French form. Obviously hasn't been seen since running in the ARC trials of 2015, but could potentially be very, very well handicapped. But I just think, I'll keep it simple. I'll be disappointed if Bassettine doesn't win. He's got a nice draw and should get the race run to suit him. So I'll be disappointed if he doesn't go close.
This can only go badly because I had Bassettine down as my nap. So
for God's sake, triple penalty again. Triple penalty in the last. The good thing in the handicap.
Well, you never know. I mean,
with American hoped it again.
Yeah, we. Christ. Right. So yeah, there's our nap. That's our winning tip for you. Just wondering if either of you had any thoughts on Saturday's race, and if you've had a look at all.
Haven't looked yet.
Did I have a look? I did have a brief look. I thought Saturday's card might be a little bit easier to work out than Thursday's, being honest. I was gutted there wasn't 8 runners in the second race because I thought Henry had obviously hit the frame as he always does. But it's nice to have some turf races for the local horses. They got obviously the 6 furlong sprint. I thought Acolyte would be very interesting in that. For Godolphin, obviously he hasn't been seen for a wee while, but again could be very well handicapped. And yeah, I've not had a proper look through yet, but I will be doing over the next couple of days. And I thought Graw, I know he's got stall 16, but obviously he likes the turf, so he could be interesting in the last. But yeah, I thought it might be easier to pick a few more winners than Thursday's card.
I think we'll get Thursday's nap out of the way. Yeah, so Bassettine's our nap. Either of you two got a next best at all yet?
Curb Your Enthusiasm would be mine in the stayers.
Do you know, but if I had to go, and I'm not even joking, I was just thinking, if I've got a next best, it will probably be him. Because but I can't do that to the loyal listeners of two shows
around.
This can only end in tears.
That's the podcast double then, because I haven't got any strong selections so far.
Okay, Rembrandt Van Rijn is going to be my next best. So I'd say lay both Bassettine and Rembrandt. But yeah, that about wraps it up for the Thursday, the eight races. I would suggest you all get in your selections for the competition in due time. Good luck to the Palmer family on Saturday with Prince J, and it's been wonderful having these two guests. Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Callum.
Pleasure.
All right.
We're even talking at the same time together now. Oh dear.
You like twins.
We need to get out more.
It's bad enough that we can pretty much finish each other's sentences in terms of tipping as well.
Aren't you like Thierry Henry anyway, Callum? Aren't you going out in a bit?
Yes. Bring my Thierry on.
Okay.
Fight the side. So more Dimitar Berbatov. I'm not going to lie. So.
And then we got Gary, who's from Phoenix Knights. So we all got our own little.
Phoenix Knights.
With that, I bid you a good day. Thank you for listening. Ciao.